Okay, so this is me, Malin, of the Love Zero Waste podcast, together with Evelina.
I'm Evelina. Hello, everybody. Malin and I are the creators and hosts of the podcast Love Zero Waste, which you're watching or listening to right now. This is Zero Waste Live. We're doing a live podcast recording every Friday in April. This is the second one. And all of our live recordings feature a different topic, all relating to how individuals, you and I, how we can help the transition towards a circular society, a zero waste society. Today's topic is how to make holidays and celebrations zero waste. We'll be talking about zero waste food, gifts, and perhaps travels as well. And we'll be talking about the magic jar, generating so little trash that you can basically fit it into a jam jar. That's not a lot. Some people would say that the jar has become something of a staple for the zero waste community, but not everybody is thriving, or not everybody is striving for that though. Simply put, this episode is all about tips and tricks on how to survive any holiday or celebration with as little waste as possible.
So today's guests are Carlyn Grebleski, blogger of Less Waste World, currently residing in Dublin, Ireland, and Andrea Lunzer, founder and CEO of the packaging-free and organic produce grocery store, Lunzers Maßgreißlerei, if it's correct pronounced, in Vienna, Austria. Was it correct, Andrea?
Well done, yes, properly pronounced.
Super.
Hi.
So welcome to Love Zero Waste, Carlyn and Andrea. We're so happy to have you with us.
Hi, very happy to be with you.
Thank you.
So whether you're celebrating Easter or not, or whether you're in quarantine at the moment, many of us are looking forward to or even longing for socializing and celebrating with others. It could be holidays, parties, anniversaries, you name it. But what's the trash situation in your homes after a big holiday? What do you say, Carlyn?
I would say it definitely depends on the holiday, but it tends to be a lot like our typical trash situation, just more. So if we're preparing a meal for guests, then whatever typical like plastic rubbish we would have, it's just a bit more. That paired with whatever people bring, right? It's quite common, especially in the US, people would like to bring something as well, maybe wine and often food. So I'd say that probably the difference in the trash is that we're kind of having trash brought sometimes to the house by people wanting to share.
And what's your situation, Andrea?
Yeah, similar. I guess the key word there was wine, because wine is hard to buy without packaging. I mean, there's some places, but that's not usually, especially not in Austria. And the wine bottle, if you look at it in an eco balance, is really has an impact, because you have about 750 milliliters of liquid, and then a very heavy single-use glass bottle. So even if you recycle it, that's something that weighs in heavily, especially if you compare it to plastic wrappers of vegetables. The weight in an eco balance is very significant. So
okay,
don't bring wine.
And you are in Austria, where people love to bring wine.
Yeah, that's very disappointing. I think a zero waste wine is easier in Italy and France, where it's way more common to have wine from the tap. In Austria, Austrians don't buy wine; they buy a name and a label. So the packaging for wine in Austria is very important, and wine is very often a present in seasonal holidays also.
Okay, interesting. So how do you think that we can make it through any holiday or any kind of celebration without generating a ton of trash or even going zero waste? Let's start with food. What are your tips for going zero waste with foods? Do you want to start, Carlyn? What do you think?
Sure, yeah. I would say if we think of impact in general, definitely to serve vegetarian food when you can. I am the only vegetarian in my family, so I have a lot of experience feeding people who eat meat. So if you are feeding vegetarian food to people who eat meat, making sure there's enough, making sure maybe that you're serving heavier foods, which they might be more used to. So just on the impact level, I would say vegetarian food. And if we're thinking of physical waste from cooking and eating, obviously reusable plates and silverware and cups, napkins, etc. One thing that makes it a lot easier for guests, especially guests who maybe are not used to using reusable products, is to just put them in front of them, right? So if you want someone to be using cloth napkins, put the cloth napkins on the table so no one goes asking where they can find something paper, something disposable. If you compost, for example, it's good to keep the compost maybe instead of where you have your bin, put your compost there so people who are looking for it know, or if you know that there will be plastic, you could let someone know where that is that you're actually putting the plastic, assuming you don't just have a typical bin, or if you're saving it for whatever reason. So just trying to make it easier for the guests that you have. And like I said, as far as the impact goes, more vegetarian food and less not vegetarian food.
I like that, the idea of making it easy, that like basically the only choice is the right choice that you can make. I really like that. Andrea, what is your input on the topic?
Again, I would like to pick up something Carlyn just said, because you talked about napkins. I don't know if you made the same experience. In my store, there was a little coffee corner, and we would have napkins and like cloth from textile, right? I think they were half linen and half cotton. And people perceive a napkin as something very posh. So when they spill something, even they have the napkin, the proper one with our logo on it, please use it, in front of them, they would ask for, just give me, just toilet paper or just something to wipe it down. And not just when they spill something, but when they wipe, their kids' hands or anything, or even their own mouth. A napkin is something that you expect in a posh restaurant. And I think that's a barrier for a lot of people to use that. And so it's a cultural barrier. It's not so much what is nicer on my hands or on my lips, because I would say cotton is nicer. But it's something that's perceived very posh, and people have some kind of burden to use that, which is a pity.
Have you tried to do anything to overcome that, to kind of make it like really persuade people kind of to use
people have to use that. We don't have any other choice.
Either
they wipe it down with their with whatever they have, or they use our napkin. Yeah. So but it's interesting to see them, the how they react and their posture and everything, how no one's used to that anymore, and that a single-use kitchen roll is, you find that in most of the households, which is really sad, because that's so easy to avoid. That's, everyone has a washing machine in Austria, so you just wash your cloth. That's so easy to avoid that waste.
Yeah. I've noticed something now also during the lockdown or the quarantine here in Austria, that it's maybe connected to celebrations, but also regarding food waste, that now that we're not going anywhere, we're in the same space, we know exactly what food we're buying. It's kind of easy to control the food waste and optimize what we eat, and how to kind of use everything, because we're not going anywhere, nothing is going bad. Have you had any similar experiences? I'm really curious about this right now.
Tell me again your question.
If you tried to, if this is a good opportunity to explore how you can optimize your food storage and usage, kind of.
Oh yeah, definitely. When you're home every day, it's so much easier, because I was working on a project for a bakery about 7 years ago, and we analyzed the waste in the bakery, but also in their customers. And the main reason why bread was thrown away, because it was bought even though there was already bread at home. So the lack of knowledge about what is at home made the customers buy new bread, and then you have the fresh stuff and the old stuff. So what you're going to eat, right? So you're going to eat the fresh bread, and that's how people are generate bread and bakery waste at home. So of course, when you're home every day, another reason pro bedingungsloses Grundeinkommen.
To pay, I don't even know what the English term is. To pay everybody like an equal amount of money in society.
The money and income is not depending on work as we perceive work until now. So
okay, yeah.
So you're home every day. You know how much food is at home, and you can act accordingly. Buy just really what you need, and use the stuff you have. So yes, I would say quarantine or a situation where you're home every day avoids food waste.
Carlyn, have you any experience working specifically like to reduce food waste?
I suppose not specifically, just in general. Actually, what you were saying made me think of being aware of what we have. I live with housemates, and some of them work in hospitality, and the establishments where they work have closed, and they were sent home with a ton of food. Okay. So I think maybe you can see the apples behind me. We still have 14 apples. We've been eating apples and cooking apples for days and days now, because it was take the apples home and someone can eat them or leave them at work, and they're just going in the bin because the establishment has been closed. So I'd say just not in particular, just in general, I think food waste is a waste that's pretty easy to avoid. And I'd say one nice thing about Ireland that is different from where I'm from in the United States is that they put food that's near expiry in a very easy place to find, so that it's a bit easier, even at the market, despite the food that's thrown away at supermarkets, you're still able to easily access food that, if not purchased that day or within the next few hours, will be thrown away. So I think that's one thing that I do quite frequently, besides just buying carefully, that helps kind of reduce the food that's unnecessarily just going to the bin.
Interesting. So what about gifts? We know that we should not bring any wine to Andrea's household. What about your
I love wine.
What about your household, Carlyn? What is a good gift? Should we bring gifts at all?
I think gifts can be nice. I think gifts should be very conscious. I personally don't really believe in giving a gift just out of obligation. It's never sincere. But I think the best way to receive gifts as a zero waster, and I say receive because I think giving gifts as a zero waster is not much different than typically. But if you are worried about getting gifts for the holidays, just to be very clear with the people you care about. Someone who wants to get you a gift wants to do it to make you happy, right? So be clear with them about the kind of things you're comfortable accepting or that actually would make you happy. So I'd say it's fine to bring gifts if it's something the person can really use or genuinely wants. But yeah, that it should be conscious. It shouldn't just be out of obligation.
Yeah. And how do people react if you tell them, or your friends or your family, if you tell them this is the kind of gift that I prefer, how do they react?
It's been a while, actually, since I had to ask someone new, but I think it's a bit easier. The people who give me gifts are people I tend to know well. So they're probably not surprised. My family, if it is a holiday, they always ask what I want, or I ask what they do. So at this stage, it's pretty standard to just specify, oh, I'm looking for, a wool sweater, but I prefer it was secondhand. Yeah. So I think starting the conversation makes it easier to continue.
Yeah. What about you, Andrea?
Gifts? I think
what do you prefer?
When especially for holidays, I think it's really nice to bring food, like already ready-made, something that I mean, with the holidays, everyone has some tradition from at home. So my mom always made that salad that way. So you can bring that already prepared, and that's so much more than just the food. But also, you know, you have you bring something very personal and something you appreciate and why you appreciate. And I mean, sharing recipes is something that I like, anyways, and it's very nice. And to answer your previous question, how to avoid packaging waste, I think the number one rule is prepare or make everything yourself. Don't buy ready-made stuff. Always start, when you start with the raw food, with the vegetables or with the dairy, which is not so raw, but you know, I mean, you have to start somewhere. Then you can avoid so much packaging. The more produced it is, the more likely it is packaged. So if you then also have the chance to buy the raw stuff from a farmer or from the source, then it's very easy to avoid packaging, because the producers are not interested in packaging. Packaging comes in with retail. Like everything we see in the supermarket now, the packaging is influenced by the retail. So the retail companies tell them, because it's an important marketing instrument, packaging, tell them how they want it packaged. So that's where the decisions are made. If you buy straight from the producer, especially from small producers, packaging is a very high cost for a producer. They are very happy if you bring your own or if you don't use packaging at all.
Okay, that's a good tip. Buy directly from the source. So what about travel? I mean, this year is a bit different. Most of us are not going anywhere, not even to the nearest city at the moment. But normally holidays and celebration also involve travel. What are your thoughts on traveling? There's a lot of waste there. I mean, flying, going by train is probably a bit better. What are your thoughts on that? Do you want to start, Andrea?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Flying is the biggest cost, the biggest impact. So, but still, I mean, if you can avoid that, then it makes sense to avoid packaging. For traveling, I'm really happy that there's been so many new products in the last 5 years that really are environmentally friendly and travel friendly. If you talk about solid shampoo, or about soaps, or about reusable cloth and bottles, it's not just easier. It's not just easier to avoid waste with that, but you can also travel lighter. Because in cosmetics, we see a lot of solids, and first you don't buy water, and when traveling, you don't carry the water. So especially when most of the time you have a source of water, then it's easier. So
to travel lighter.
Very important. Yeah, with solid toothpaste also. It's lighter, and it doesn't need a tube. It doesn't need packaging. It doesn't need anything.
Yeah. Carlyn, what is your take on traveling?
Like Andrea said, I think don't fly if you can avoid flying. Don't. As I've said, I'm overseas from my country right now. However, I think even if you do live abroad, there's no need to go home for every holiday. I've already missed a couple holidays myself, but I'm just fine. Go home for what's the most important. Maybe stay home longer rather than going home frequently and taking a lot of flights. Although I have, flown a few times as a zero waster, and I'd say my two probably most helpful things I bring with me to reduce waste when going to the airport is a fork. Most airport security you can get through with a fork. Well, I've always been able to get through with a fork, and you can definitely get through with a spoon. So if you need to bring a utensil, a fork or a spoon, you can get through. And also, instead of a water bottle, if I'm limited, I'll usually just bring a reusable coffee cup, like a keep cup kind of thing, because it has a wider opening. So it's quite easy to drink coffee from a coffee cup and water, but it's not so comfortable or easy to try and drink coffee, for example, from a water bottle. So if you were to get something to drink, etc., in the airport, the cup with the wider mouth, with the bigger opening, is definitely it's the better cup to have for flying and airport travel.
Oh, that's a good tip. Over to you, Malin.
Yeah, well, Carlyn, we talked with you in a previous episode of Love Zero Waste. It was actually in the first season. And you told us about your learning experience, eliminating almost all trash from your life. And what was left literally just fit in a jam jar. Could you just introduce the jam jar for us quite shortly? And then I will just ask you some more questions on that topic.
Yeah, so I kept a trash jar, so a glass jar full of trash for about 19 months in total, which I stopped when I moved. And yeah, it was actually more than one jar. By the end, I had a couple jars.
Was
maybe
it like
about
2
size.
liters, 1 liter?
I'm not sure. They were reused, right? They used to have other things in them. But yeah, so I did that for quite a long time.
And speaking of the jar and then having the topic in mind of zero waste celebrations and holidays, do you have anything that you have learned from using the jar that you can apply in this context?
Holidays. That's a good question. I think that probably the same thing that you learned from the jar in general, that even if you reduce the plastic as much as you can, there's still kind of that waste that's going on behind it, right? So perhaps I fly overseas for a holiday and I bring all my own food in reusable containers and don't use any single-use plastic. And I get there and we cook all the meals without any plastic packaging or paper packaging even. My trash jar has no more trash, but I've still created a really big impact. So I'd say that I would apply that. Kind of the same rules go, that to keep in mind that I obviously see value in reducing our physical trash, but to not be blinded as a jar or any container as the measure of your impact.
Very mindful, very aware.
Indeed, yeah. Andrea, what kind of, do you notice when there's a holiday coming up in the store, do people have specific questions or they ask for specific advice?
Holiday or not, food retail changes a lot with the seasons. So of the food retail has a low in July and August, not just because people are away, but more because people eat less and cook less. So we don't have too much movement on flour and anything that you have to cook. So people don't cook in winter, especially in our target group. It's a thing they cook on the weekends. So they would have a huge grocery purchase on Friday or Saturday, and then cook with the family. So and then also obviously things like chocolates go better in winter than in summer. And in summer, chocolate competes with fresh berries and fresh fruits and vegetables. So especially in our target group, everyone's eager to have that. And then for holidays, you have traditional things like in Austria, a lot of people eat fish and certain kind of potato salad. And for Easter, the traditional thing would be ham in a bread crumb. Not bread crumbs, but you have a bread dough and you wrap the ham in it and you put it in the oven. And to it, you would have whipped cream with radish.
Even I haven't had that. Okay.
It's called Oberstgren.
Okay.
Oberstgren. Is Gren radish?
I think so.
It's a very Austrian thing. So we buy a lot of cream. We make sure cream is here and radish is here, because that's one traditional thing for Easter, and eggs, obviously. And we found out that a lot of our customers would like to color their eggs themselves and not buy ready-made colors. So we have a high demand on red onions, because that's how they dye it, how they color their eggs. So yeah, and of course the demand with eggs, I mean, that's the thing, was higher through the quarantine. In general, the demand on fresh stuff is higher through the quarantine, as more people are at home and cooking for themselves. So everything they usually eat in the company's canteen or in restaurants, they eat at home. So there's a bigger demand, and also eggs is a popular product. And then also with Easter, there's the demand on eggs is even higher. But the chicken just don't produce more. So yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I've also noticed in the food stores that the eggs have been, or the organic eggs have been out of stock since weeks now.
Yeah.
Oh, time flies, Malin.
Yeah, really,
ready for the wrap
time
up?
flies. Yeah, I think we should do a wrap up. So the topic today is how to make holidays and celebrations zero waste. So Carlyn, what would you say is the main takeaway for anyone that would like to celebrate any holiday or celebration without generating waste?
Okay, yeah. So probably two things to be clear with your guests or your loved ones about your intentions so that they're aware, and just make it as easy as you can. Don't put any barriers to having a successful celebration in a zero waste way.
Wonderful. Andrea, did you have any word to add to that?
No, I'm going to stick to my number one rule. Just make everything yourself. Don't buy overproduced products. The more produced, the more packaging. So try to make as much as possible from scratch. Use the time to look up recipes and make it yourself.
That's beautiful. Beautiful advice. Thank you for joining us today, Carlyn and Andrea. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
If you'd like to learn more about Andrea's packaging-free and organic produce food store, you can check out Lunzers Maßgreißlerei. I mean, Maßgreißlerei is the most difficult word to spell ever, but check out Maßgreißlerei .at. So that would be MASS-GREISSLEREI.at. I made it.
Maybe we should just post it somewhere.
Yeah, we are posting it. I think that's better.
Yes, and also the location at Heinerstraße 35 in the 2nd district in Vienna. And for Carlyn's blog, check out lesswasteworld.com. That's an easy one. But do check out our show notes and social media channels for the correct spelling. This is Love Zero Waste Live. Make sure to follow Love Zero Waste Live on Instagram and on Facebook to get updates on the coming episodes and recordings. I'm Evelina Lundqvist.
And I'm Malin Lett, and you have listened to or watched Love Zero Waste Live. Stay safe and wash your hands.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Ciao.
Bye.